Commerce and Accountancy Optional in UPSC is one of the top scoring optional. As per the latest UPSC annual report, it is also providing more than 12% success rate, which is way higher than many other optionals. We are providing many free initiatives on Commerce Optional for the beginners. You can join our Telegram channel and you should follow our YouTube beginner series by the toppers and the teachers. You can also schedule one-to-one mentoring call with me to plan your strategy for the Commerce Optional. Our courses on the Commerce include classroom course, enriched study material, detailed solution of the previous year questions, and the daily answer writing mock test and practice. We are also adding the value through value additions.
So first of all, welcome everyone. And basically, as you see, as you have seen the topic of this session, the purpose is to help you in the opinion building on the important issues of the Commerce Optional. Okay. So Commerce Optional interview preparation is very important because as you see the transcript of the people in the past and recent also, a lot of people are getting the questions directly from the Commerce Optional, right? So if you get yourself prepared on the important issues, you get confidence first of all. Secondly, you get a clarity that how to answer in the real interview. Okay. So for this purpose, I have Mr. Madhav Agarwal. So I welcome Madhav in the session, and he is kind enough to offer his research for the benefit of you people. In fact, he himself asked me that if I can help the students in any way, and I requested that most important help you can do is for the interview appearing students, because they are the people who get free sessions everywhere, but in the optional, everyone is ready to take the mock interviews, but no one is ready to help in the content research, including me. I am not helping you much in the content, because that needs a different kind of mindset. So someone who is preparing for the interview and who is willing also to share his research, only that person can help. So Madhav, really thank you, and it shows your big-heartedness that you are sharing your information, your research with the people. So इन्होंने अभी भी recently अपना interview भी दिया हुआ है, and we are hoping that he will get the good rank this year. And you people also, you are also already working. I know that you are working, each and everyone. आप already prepare कर भी रहे, और काफी सारे issues पे आपकी अपनी research base already होगा, ठीक है? तो यहाँ पर basically purpose of the session ये है कि अगर आपने already research किया हुआ है, then you can confirm that research from this discussion. You can just make it sure कि हाँ ठीक है, I am on the right lines. And if you have something lacking in some topic, then you can add the content from here. Okay. So we have got some around 15-20 topics. The most important topic from where the questions are repeatedly asked, right? Based upon the past transcript, based upon the recent development in the Commerce Optional, in the economics, right? So Mr. Madhav will be basically taking up the topic one by one, and he will be giving the approach, then how to discuss, how to prepare. तो यहाँ पे जो मेन फोकस वो है कि हमें कैसे उसको प्रिपेयर करना है. हमारा जो मेन फोकस यहाँ पे है वो सिर्फ ये नहीं है कि आपको फैक्ट देना है. We don't want to give you just facts कि ठीक है ये फैक्ट है, ये आप प्रिपेयर कर लीजिए. पर्पस है कि अप्रोच क्या होना चाहिए, and he has built his own opinion based upon yes or no whatsoever. So you can get some idea from him, and you can build your own research base upon that. ठीक है. और आपके कुछ क्वेश्चंस अगर होंगे तो he can see the questions. You can type in the chat box. He will be able to answer to your queries. And don't write all this information. Rather, I will say listen to the data, listen to the analysis. And if you want to write something, you write it something. And if you want the recording later, we will provide the recording also, because this session is being recorded, right? तो आपका फोकस लिसनिंग पे होना चाहिए, अंडरस्टैंडिंग पे होना चाहिए, एनालिसिस पे होना चाहिए. Writing and all, if you want, you can postpone, because we will provide the recording if you are requesting for the recording. ठीक है? So, are you excited, everyone? And any request from your side, you can share in the chat box. Now, I am handing over this session to Mr. Madhav. He will pick up one by one all the topics, and whatever approach he has been using for his own preparation, he will share that. And मैंने भी इनका mock interview लिया था recently, इन्होंने हमारे साथ मेंस की प्रिपरेशन भी की थी. तो ओवरऑल आई फाउंड हिज अप्रोच इज वेरी कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव, वेरी बैलेंस्ड अप्रोच इन आंसर्स, इन not only technical but the behavioral aspect is also including in the mains also and in the interview also. So मेरी तरफ से अगर मैं एक जो सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट अगर मैं एक वर्ड में बोलना चाहूँ तो क्या मिसिंग होता है कॉमर्स स्टूडेंट्स में, वो होता है बिहेवियरल एस्पेक्ट. इवन दो वी स्टडी रिलेशनल बिहेवियर, वी स्टडी मोटिवेशन लीडरशिप, बट एक्चुअली हमारे आंसर में वो चीज दिखती नहीं है. हमारे आंसर में वही दिखता है, बैलेंस शीट बना लो, प्रॉफिट एंड लॉस बना लो, प्रॉफिट आ जाएगा तो लॉस हो जाएगा. तो हमारा जो मेंट ऑफ माइंड है ना वो अभी भी हमारे सिर्फ प्रॉफिट लॉस पर अटका रहता है. सो मॉक इंटरव्यूज में जैसे ही मैं थोड़ा कुछ ह्यूमन बेस्ड क्वेश्चन पूछता हूँ, सर कुछ मैं वैसा क्वेश्चन पूछता हूँ कि आप कॉमर्स के नॉलेज को कैसे यूज करोगे अपने एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन में. तो लोग आंसर देते हैं, सर मैं अच्छे से रिपोर्ट प्रिपेयर करूंगा, सर मैं अच्छे से एनालिसिस करूंगा. उस चीज के लिए आपको हायर नहीं कर रहे हैं, उस चीज के लिए ऑलरेडी वहां पर बहुत सारे हेड ऑफ द डिपार्टमेंट बैठे हुए हैं, उस चीज के लिए ऑलरेडी वहां पर बहुत सारे कंप्यूटर्स लगे हुए हैं. हमें जो हायर कर रहे हैं वो हमारी क्वालिटीज के लिए हायर कर रहे हैं. You know, as a CA or as a commerce graduate, we must have developed some skills which may not be available in other people. For example, analytical, evidence-based research, or having a mindset where we are cross-verifying the things based upon the facts. तो ये सब चीजें ना हमें बेसिकली उस पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से बोल रही है. हमें कोई स्पेसिफिक एक चीज को हाईलाइट ना करके हमें ओवरऑल कॉम्प्रिहेंसिवली हमें चीजों को प्रेजेंट करना है, राइट? So I'm handing over to Madhav now, and you can ask your questions whatever you have in the chat box.
Hello.
What if you're
Okay. Yeah, I'll just start with my brief introduction. My name is Madhav Agarwal. I am a CA by profession and have a work experience in audit and taxation. I belong to Gwalior district in Madhya Pradesh. I've done primary part of my schooling from a boarding school in Indore, and then completed my graduation in BCom Accounting and Finance from Narsi Munji College in Mumbai. Post that I completed along with my CA. I'm also a CFA. I've passed all the 3 levels. As of now, my interests are some cooking, as well as I volunteer with an NGO for organ donation awareness. So this is a brief introduction of myself. My UPSC journey has been, I have given 4 attempts, and this was my second interview. Recently, I finished giving the interview in Jan itself, and I interacted with sir to basically if I could be of help to the students in any way, because sir has been very kind in helping us throughout the journey of mains as well as an interview by conducting commerce specific mock interviews, especially as because in most interviews you'll not get in-depth questions, and you might end up believing that you are very good at attempting commerce questions, but which might not be really the case. So when you talk to an expert who knows the content, your level of preparedness is actually judged. So that is one thing which I interacted with sir constantly in my preparation. Yeah. So my interview experience had specific questions for commerce. For example, they tested me on some situational questions with respect to debt level. If in an industry, how can you deal with that debt level? Or one member completely focused on the concept of cryptocurrency. How does it work? Because I think currency is the bedrock for commerce. So money is needed. So in that way, I think he picked up that theme. So cryptocurrency. The other members also focused on the audit aspect of my work experience. So what audits have you done? Who regulates the audit industry and the profession? And so it went on to NFRA, etc., why NFRA was brought, and some factual questions around it. So this was one part of my interview, and I think having commerce as an optional in graduation, work experience, as well as a profession, I think this brings a consistency and eases your preparation. So this allowed me to prepare in depth for commerce specifically. So I'll give you brief content preparation style for interview. So what I did was I analyzed the transcripts of, so I gave the interview last year as well. So I analyzed the transcripts of 2022 and 2023. So I read the transcripts, filtered out the possible questions on commerce specifically, as well as economics. So first I listed out all the questions, possible questions which are asked, then categorized them into specific themes. For example, the themes could be IBC, the themes could be, which is the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, the themes could be GST, the theme could be economy-based questions on banks, economy-based questions on exports. So now that you recognize the themes, you have to prepare in a thematic manner for your interview specifically. Most of the content you must have prepared in your mains exam as well. So you have to use that and ensure that your content, can it address those questions? If not, then you have to do some additional research. Second aspect is reading an economic newspaper. I think we being commerce students, we must have an additional practical or technical aspect in our answers compared to a GS based student. So if the same question of taxation on agriculture is asked to a student who is not from commerce optional compared to us, I think we must have some additional analysis that we can bring into the answer. So I think that will give you an additional edge which you can get from an economic based newspaper, either Economic Times. This year I was reading Business Line. It is a short paper, as well as the Mint. So last year I was focusing on Mint, but you must not overdo this economic newspaper. I was discussing with sir also that often when we are reading economic newspapers, we end up reading all the news. We find it important, but we must understand we have to focus on major news, something which the interviewer might know about. So the case of NFRA, the case of IBC, he must have some knowledge about it so that he can test you. But if the content in the newspaper is specifically with respect to, say, a very detailed news about a guideline which has been brought, or a very detailed news about some changes in the income tax section, maybe there are chances that the interviewer might not know about it, and you may end up wasting your time for it. So you need to be analytical while reading the newspaper, business newspaper specifically, and you again have to focus on the major themes that you get from the transcripts. So if there is some news about NFRA and you do not have that content, you should pick the news item in a crisp manner for your content. And another thing is the static portion. So the static portion that we read for mains, I think it becomes a little less relevant when it comes to interview-based questions. So there are less chances that you will be tested upon specific accounting standards, or say a specific concept in cost accounting. But this does not mean that you should not revise it. I think some question answer format can come. For example, what is, say, performance audit? What is environmental audit? So you must focus on the subjects which you have mentioned in the graduation aspect. So if your graduation is also in BCom with commerce, so there is a high chance for that. I specifically listed those subjects in which I am comfortable, and those subjects which are also in our optional. For example, auditing, taxation, SFM. So this reduced my preparation for graduation aspect, I think. And so focus more on those areas, particularly.
I'm sorry, I'm intervening.
Yes, sir.
Like you prepared last year also?
Yes.
And how many marks you got? I think 184?
170.
170.
Yeah.
So how the approach of this year was different for you? And also you share how is the interview experience different this year? You know, how can preparation help you in the, increasing marks or being comfortable? So ये क्वेश्चन भी मेरा सबको कम्युनिकेट, बिकॉज दे कैन नॉट हियर मी, माइक आपके पास है ना, तो उनको बता दीजिए कि दिस पॉइंट यू कैन हाईलाइट, ठीक है, व्हेनेवर यू आर कंफर्टेबल.
ओके मैं लिख लूंगा उसको.
जिस मेरे माइंड में उल्टा है कि आपका एक्सपीरियंस लास्ट ईयर कैसा था और इस साल कैसा है, आपकी प्रिपरेशन में क्या चाहिए थी?
प्रिपरेशन में एक मेजर चेंज सर ये रहा कि सर का क्वेश्चन था कि आपने किस तरीके से प्रिपरेशन में चेंज किया है कंपेयर टू लास्ट ईयर. So last year I was reading each and every aspect of the economic newspaper. मेरे को लगता है उसकी रिक्वायरमेंट नहीं है और आप इतना यूज भी नहीं कर पाओगे अपने आंसर्स में, तो उसमें इतना टाइम वेस्ट मत करो, उसको स्पेसिफिक रखो, स्टिक टू द थीम्स विच आर मोर आस्क्ड एंड स्टिक टू द मेजर थीम्स जो हो रही हैं. फॉर एग्जांपल अगर अभी IMF की आर्टिकल 4 रिपोर्ट आई थी दिसंबर में, तो वो सारे नेशनल न्यूज़पेपर्स में भी थी और सब सारे न्यूज़पेपर्स में थी। तो उसको आप अगर इकोनॉमिक न्यूज़पेपर से पढ़ोगे तो आपको थोड़ा सा एडिशनल टेक्निकल कंटेंट मिलेगा और आपको थोड़ी सी एनालिसिस मिलेगी जो दूसरे पेपर्स में मिसिंग होती है। तो वो टॉपिक्स आपको जरूर उससे पढ़ना चाहिए, रादर देन फोकसिंग ऑन एवरीथिंग कि यार ये भी पूछ सकते हैं। पूछ तो कुछ भी सकते हैं, उसका एंड नहीं है और नॉलेज का टेस्ट है नहीं। यस करेक्ट। तो उसमें आई डोंट थिंक अपने को स्टक रहना चाहिए। तो यस, ऑप्शनल में भी आप स्पेसिफिक जाओगे तो बेटर रहेगा अपने कंटेंट को प्रिपेयर करने में। मेरे पास बहुत कम टाइम था, तो आई इंश्योर्ड आई वाज स्टिकिंग टू द एरियाज विच आर मेंशन, फॉर एग्जांपल ऑडिटिंग। तो उसके आप ब्रीफ जो क्वेश्चन आंसर फॉर्मेट में सर ने प्रोवाइड किया, फिर रैंकर्स क्लासेस पे भी है, तो उनके आप जो क्वेश्चन आंसर फॉर्मेट में उसको प्रिपेयर करोगे तो आई थिंक दैट वुड बी सफिशिएंट। तो ये बेसिक प्रेपरेशन का मेरे को गाइडलाइंस देना था। एक ओपिनियन बिल्डिंग के लिए जनरल गाइडलाइन कि अपनों कैसे ओपिनियन फॉर्म करना चाहिए। सबसे पहले तो एक मिसकंसेप्शन रहता है कि अपने को प्रोज एंड कॉन्स बताना है उस चीज के। तो ओपिनियन में प्रोज एंड कॉन्स नहीं बताना है अपने को एक ओपिनियन, एक स्टैंड लेना पड़ेगा कि अगर टैक्सेशन ऑफ एग्रीकल्चर करना है तो यस सर करना है, नहीं तो नहीं करना है। तो पहले तो अपने को एक क्लियर कट स्टैंड लेना पड़ेगा उस चीज में। तो अपने को उसको एक्सप्रेस भी करना पड़ेगा स्टार्टिंग में कि सर दिस इज माय स्टैंड, उसके आर्ग्यूमेंट्स है मेरे ये या ये। सेकंड, आपको उसको प्रैक्टिकली रेलेवेंट रखना पड़ेगा, प्रैक्टिकल एस्पेक्ट्स उसमें आने चाहिए। स्पेशली अगर वो कॉमर्स या इकोनॉमी रिलेटेड क्वेश्चन है तो क्या आप उसमें कुछ अपना एज लेके आ सकते हैं कंपेयर टू अ जीएस बेस्ड स्टूडेंट जो सेम आंसर करे। और जहां तक पॉसिबल है, हर ऑब्वियसली टॉपिक के दो साइड्स होते हैं, तो आप दूसरी साइड को भी लेके आए उसमें अपने ओपिनियन में, बट वो आपको थोड़ा सा स्मार्टली लेके आना पड़ेगा। वो अपन आगे एक बार टॉपिक्स में डिस्कस करेंगे। और लास्ट इंपॉर्टेंट आई थिंक गाइडलाइन वुड बी टू हैव एन बेसिकली ऑप्टिमिस्टिक अप्रोच टुवर्ड्स योर ओपिनियन। सो इट मस्ट हैव अ पॉजिटिव आउटलुक। अगर कुछ चीज नेगेटिव भी है, फॉर एग्जांपल इकोनॉमी में कुछ नेगेटिव हो रहा है, तो यू मस्ट हैव अ पॉजिटिव आउटलुक सर की स्टेप्स ले रही है गवर्नमेंट, दीज आर द स्टेप्स विच आर बीइंग टेकन, मोर एफर्ट्स कैन बी टेकन अप। सो ग्रेजुअली इट मस्ट हैव अ ऑफिसर लाइक क्वालिटी और ऑप्टिमिस्टिक अप्रोच उसमें दिखना चाहिए। You want to sit down?
No,
okay. Okay. So, should we begin with the first topic?
in fact you can sit, you can lie properly.
Okay, sir.
It's a long session. अब 3 घंटे खड़े होने की आदत पड़ेगी। Properly.
Sir, I'll be giving my brief content on the topic. Wherever you want to add, you can.
In fact, what I would prefer ना कि अभी आप इसको
ठीक है, no issues.
वो अप्रोच से थोड़ा सा ना
ठीक है, no issues.
आपस में
No issues.
तो अभी आप अपने प्रेम पे डिस्कस कर दीजिए।
Done, sir.
और इनफैक्ट अगर जरूरत पड़ेगी तो हम देख लेंगे कैसे करना है।
Okay, sir.
अभी आई थिंक यू शुड कंटिन्यू।
Okay. Thank you so much, sir.
तो फ्लो बन नहीं पाएगा फिर।
Yes, sir. Yes.
So you please
Okay. Thank you.
I'll be listening.
Okay, sir. Okay.
तो सपोर्ट चाहिएगा तो
Sure. Thank you so much, sir. Okay. So,
चैट बॉक्स में से कॉल कर देंगे कुछ कोई नहीं।
okay, sir. So,
नया सेटअप है थोड़ा सा भी
yeah.
कंफर्टेबल हो जाएगा लिखता हूँ उसमें।
फर्स्ट टॉपिक जो मैंने चूज किया था डिस्कशन करने के लिए, दैट इज ऑडिटर एंड देयर रोल इन फ्रॉड। ये बहुत सारे आई थिंक क्वेश्चन इसमें पूछा जाता है बार बार। बहुत सारे ट्रांसक्रिप्ट्स में आप क्वेश्चन देखेंगे कि यूजुअली ऐसा देखा जाता है कि ऑडिटर इज बीइंग इंडल्जिंग इन फ्रॉड्स। क्या ऑडिट प्रोफेशन रेलिवेंट है, क्या ऑडिटर अपना रोल प्रॉपरली कर रहे हैं कि नहीं। सो इस टाइप के क्वेश्चन जनरली पूछे जाते हैं स्पेशली सीएस से कि ऑडिटर्स फ्रॉड तो पकड़ नहीं पा रहे, तो क्या वो रेलेवेंट भी हैं या फिर उसमें कुछ चेंजेस के रिक्वायरमेंट है। तो बेसिक अपन अगर देखें तो रोल ऑफ ऑडिटर क्या होता है, अपन लोग पढ़ते हैं रोल ऑफ ऑडिटर इज बेसिकली टू गिव रीजनेबल अश्योरेंस, रीजनेबल अश्योरेंस देना है ऑडिटर को। जस्ट अ सेकेंड। ओके, या इट्स ओके सर। रीजनेबल अश्योरेंस अपने को देना रहता है कि वेदर द फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स आर फ्री फ्रॉम मटेरियल फ्रॉड्स एंड एरर्स। सो इसमें एक रीजनेबल अश्योरेंस होता है, एग्जामिनेशन जैसा इन डेप्थ नहीं होता है, फर्स्ट थिंग। सेकेंड इज मटेरियल एस्पेक्ट्स को अपन देखते हैं, सारे एरर सारे फ्रॉड्स को अपन एलिमिनेट नहीं कर सकते हैं। तो ये एक बेसिक रोल ऑफ ऑडिटर हुआ। और ऑडिटर अपन किंगस्टन मिल्स केस में भी देखा है कि ऑडिटर इज नॉट अ ब्लड हाउंड, तो ऑडिटर एक इन्वेस्टिगेशन उससे नहीं जाएगा, इन्वेस्टिगेटिव माइंडसेट से नहीं जाता है। सेकेंड एस्पेक्ट मैं बेसिक कंटेंट आपको दे रहा हूं, एक फ्रॉड होता है। फ्रॉड यूजुअली एक सोफेस्टिकेटेडली डिजाइंड एक कॉन्सेप्ट होता है। जब किसी को फ्रॉड करना है तो वो इस तरीके से उसको डिजाइन करेगा कि ही विल हाइड इंफॉर्मेशन, he will cover up, he will give you false records, or it is a duty of auditor to verify those, but does the auditor have all the powers to investigate, first thing, and second, does he have all the time to give a detailed report on the same topic? So auditor has to complete his audit before the AGM, which must be held in 6 months. So उसके ऊपर भी एक डेडलाइन है, क्या उसके पास इतने डिटेल्ड पावर्स हैं कि वो हर एविडेंस को क्वेश्चन कर सके। तो इस सब चीजों को ध्यान रख के मेरे को लगता है अपने को ओपिनियन फेस करना चाहिए। आई थिंक ऑडिटर इन्वॉल्व इन फ्रॉड का जो मैंने ओपिनियन फॉर्म किया था, दैट वाज सिंपली कि सर देयर कुड बी 2 possible cases in this situation. Number 1 would be that the auditor itself is hand in gloves with the management. He is not exercising proper professional competence, as well as his integrity is being questioned. So in those cases, for example, you could have some negative examples you can quote. For example, recently Mumbai-based LLP, it was slapped penalties by the NFRA, or recently for professional misconduct 50 lakh penalty and debarment was faced by another auditor for claiming undue income tax deduction. So you could back your statement and say, sir, if such is a case, the law must take its course and the auditor must be punished through the proper rules and regulations, either through the NFRA or the ICI, as the case may be. And second is the case with respect to whether the auditor has exercised proper professional skepticism, has he followed the ethical guidelines, has he undertaken audits in a proper manner, the plan has been designed in a sophisticated manner, is he basically exploring all the options possible, for example, doing a in-depth check of related party transactions, wherever there is a scope for asking for additional evidence and it is required. So whether he is doing that. So second would be a case where the auditor has done whatever he could in his professional capacity within the time, deadline, the power that he has, and still he was not able to uncover fraud. Then in that case, the auditor cannot be completely liable, because then the points that we have discussed before, because the auditor may not have the proper timelines, the auditor role is to give reasonable assurance, and now the responsibility comes on all the stakeholders together. For example, if you have to check the fraud in a company, you have to have mechanisms such as proper audit committee, the management is ethical, the role of the government, the role of the regulators, NFRA, and the auditor. So auditor cannot always be dealt as a scapegoat. Only he or she is responsible for checking fraud. So I think you can divide your opinion in these 2 points, 1 and 2, and then you can cover up and say that, sir, a whole of all the stakeholders basically are required to check the frauds in an industry or a profession. And for that, you could also quote some positive examples. For example, recently in Go Mechanic, the auditing company, I think it was PwC. So PwC revealed some issues with respect to the Go Mechanic. So there were lack of transparency, related party transactions, fraudulent accounting, etc. So all these were an issue. So there are some positive roles which are also played by auditors. So this could be the level of analysis that you can give. So first point, you can say if there are hand in gloves, you have to basically, the law must take its course. Second case, if they have exercised proper professional skepticism and followed the ethical guidelines. And there are good examples as well. For example, the Go Mechanic case or some other case if you want to point out. Then, and third point could be the role of all the stakeholders which is required. So in this way, your opinion would be much more holistic and it will not look as that you are a CA, so you are defending the audit profession. So we must have to ensure that integrity and neutrality of a civil servant is also reflected in our answer. I think this was the approach that I followed. I hope this made sense. So you must have some positive examples, negative examples to wrap up your situation. If you have any specific questions, you can keep posting them in the chat options. I will keep reading those and address them time to time. So I think this would give you an holistic idea. Next topic that I took was new tax regime versus old tax regime. I think this is a major income tax change that happened in the last budget. And being commerce professionals, say as a CA or as a student of taxation, I think this theme could be tested by the professionals because they themselves must be filing their returns and facing issues whether we should opt for old taxation or new taxation. So I'm not basically going into the depth of the differences. I think we have all read that in our commerce optional, as well as in our practice we are well familiar of the different slab rates and the interest which is provided. I wanted to deal with some specific aspects in this. For example, why this new tax regime was brought. So this again is a basic question, but this would reduce, this would reduce the compliance burden. Again, the old tax regime basically offered you restricted options in terms of claiming deductions. So while dealing with chapter 6, for example, you have to do a tax saving FD for 5 years or equity linked savings scheme you have to do. But that has a restricted period for 5 years. Now the younger generation today wants more flexibility. They are more educated. They are more informed about their investment decisions. So rather than basically binding them in restrictions, the new tax regime has done away with the deductions and puts the onus on the investors and the tax assessees basically to opt for their choices and take their investment and saving options separately from the tax regime. Another advantage of new tax regime would be that it would be a simplified mechanism. So there are chances based on the simplified compliance burden. It will nudge the taxpayers to shift to new tax regime as well as enter the formalization of economy as well as filing income tax returns, which will benefit the whole tax collections as well as the compliances. So this is one question, why the logic behind new tax regime. Second is, there is again a concept where the surcharge was reduced for income above 5 crore. So surcharge for income above 5 crore was reduced from 37% to 25%. So usually what we see is in a welfare state, we usually have a progressive rate of taxation, more taxation for higher level of income, surcharge is also there for higher level of income, but here there is an irony where the surcharge has been reduced from 37 to 25%. So the board might want to test your knowledge on this. So the issue overall here was, in India, maximum tax rate at that time, effective tax rate was 42.74%. When you take 30% says, then higher level of surcharge, etc. says, 30% tax rate says, 4% says. So it comes to 42%. And what this was leading to was an exodus of high net worth individuals. Because of high level of taxation, the high net worth individuals which had high level of income, they were leaving India to escape this burdensome taxation. Also, with this, the HNIs would have invested in India, so this was also leading to reduction in investments into India. So the finance ministry recognized this aspect and basically brought the surcharge from 37 to 25%, which brought our effective tax rate to 39%. So this was the logic behind bringing the surcharge down. So when you'll give this logic in your answers, I think it will give a proper communication and will show your analysis to the board that yes, I'm a well-read person, and it is not just reduction of the role of a welfare state, but the state is thinking in the practical implications of the policy that it has brought. So to check the exodus of HNIs as well as tackle the low level of investments, this surcharge rate was reduced. Next interesting question which could be asked for taxation is basically which one is better. So we know there are different slab rates and taxations for old versus new. And there is a proper image that you can get with respect to comparison where what we should do. So I basically analyzed this aspect. And what you'll notice is because of the rebate that you get up to 5 lakhs or 7 lakhs, so you can form 4 categories for this. So there could be no straightforward answer for this. So you can start with saying that there is no simple answer to this. It would depend on the computation which we do on both the tax regime. Usually in practical aspects, we use a taxation software, say Computax or etc. And this software itself calculates the tax liability in both the tax regimes, and you can opt for your preferred regime. But as a matter of answering the question, I think up to 5 lakhs, both are same. You are indifferent because up to 5 lakh there is no taxation because of 87A, and again up to 7 lakhs in case of the new tax regime, so that is also exempted. So up to 5 lakhs, if your income is up to 5 lakhs, both are same, you are indifferent. Second case would be from 5 lakh to 15 lakh. Third case would be 15 lakh to 5 crore. Fourth would be 5 crore and above. In the fourth case, basically 5 crore and above, we just saw that the surcharge rate has been reduced from 37 to 25%. This is only for new tax regime. So because of this fact, now if your income is above 5 crore, you should particularly for 5 crore and above, you should opt for new tax regime, because when your income is above 5 crores, you will have to face a lesser surcharge rate over here. That makes sense. So up to 5 lakh, you are indifferent. 5 crore and above, you are you should opt for new tax regime. 5 lakh to 15 lakh. Before that, we'll see 15 lakh to 5 crore. So here you can basically quote a number. So if your deduction under chapter 6A is greater than 4.25 lakh. So if your deduction is greater than 4.25 lakh, old is better, otherwise new is better. So if you have deduction more than this amount, you should opt for old because your deduction will be allowed in the old tax regime. Otherwise, you should opt for the new tax regime because here you will have a lesser burden with respect to taxation. Now, this number cannot be calculated for this aspect, 5 lakh to 15 lakh. For this, we'll have to calculate each and every income. For example, if we take the example of 10 lakh. Here, if we take the case of 10 lakh, if your income, if your deductions are above say 3 lakh, then your taxable income becomes 7 lakh. And if your deduction is 10 lakh, basically 7 lakh. Now, if 10 lakh you have deduction of 3 lakh, your effective income is 7 lakh. Now you should opt for old tax regime because you'll face a lower burden of tax rate in this. So I'll summarize it again. Up to 5 lakh, both are indifferent. 5 crore and above, you should opt for new. 15 lakh to 5 crore, there is a number of 4.25 lakh. If it is above 4.25 lakh, you opt for old and new in this case. In 5 to 15 lakh, you cannot calculate this type of number over here, but you'll have to go for case-to-case basis. So you can give this analysis if it is asked in the interview or any other setup. So with this, you can approach the question. Of course, some calculations, this is a general guideline. The income of assessee could vary and there could be some exceptions to this, but basically general, you can discuss these 4 cases. I hope you guys understood this aspect of taxation. Please express yourself in chat options because just write in a Y if you had understood this question of the concept of new tax regime, why we are changing it. Okay, thank you. We'll take the questions together at the end. Next topic that I chose was taxation on agriculture. So for basics on taxation on agriculture, I think one is with respect to taxation on agriculture can be done by state governments because it is the part of state list. In the union list, they have the power to tax on income except the agriculture income. So taxation of agriculture income is first in the hands of the state government. So that is one thing which you must know. And overall, my opinion was that we have to take some steps to tax income. But when you analyze this topic in depth, you will see that taxation of agriculture is a politically sensitive issue. Successive governments have shown little interest in taking corrective measures, while the official reports like Kelkar Committee or the Third Tax Administration Reform Committee, TARC, all have suggested to tax the agriculture. But overall, the $1 million question here is, who will bell the cat? So nobody wants to take the onus, but based on my little analysis, I think we must take some steps for taxation of agriculture, for which I have some arguments. First, it has been recommended by Kelkar and TARC committees. So I'm using some arguments which have been given by these committees. One is the taxation on agriculture. It is basically hurting the vertical and horizontal equity. For example, why horizontal equity is being heard. For example, if a farmer is earning 5 lakh versus, say, a mechanic or a carpenter who might be of the same vulnerable situation as compared to a farmer, but his income will get taxed. So I'll take the case of, say, 10 lakh. His income will get taxed, while the farmer's income won't be taxed. So we are dealing on an horizontal level differently for agriculture specifically, while the other vulnerable sections are also facing the issue of taxation. So it is disturbing the horizontal equity. Second is the aspect of vertical equity. So vertically, if we see within the farmers, we see the poor farmer versus the rich farmer. Both of these are getting same taxation benefits. So both their incomes are remaining untaxed. So we might think of eliminating this vertical and horizontal equity. So if the farmer is earning, say, 10,000 rupees, his income is not being taxed. If the rich farmer is earning, say, 50 crore rupees, his agriculture income is also not being taxed. So this, my first argument is, it is disturbing the vertical and horizontal equity. Second argument is that we all know people use this provision to evade taxation. Basically, it encourages laundering. So people use the earned black money through other sources and show it as an agriculture income in an unfair manner. So this provision is basically being exploited. So this is my second main argument, and I think it acts as a conduit for tax evasion. Third, I think, is again the aspect of vertical equity itself. The idea of giving exemption to agriculture income was to help the small farmers who are already facing a lot of burden. But now what is happening is the agriculture income is also exempt for medium and large companies. So even the companies are being exempt for their agriculture income. Maybe this was not the intent of the law as it was designed. It was designed to benefit the small individual vulnerable farmers. But now this provision is also being exploited by medium and large companies for their agriculture income. Another argument is, because of agriculture income not being taxed, the burden of taxation for service of our economy and providing welfare schemes and expenditure of the government, it falls on the other assessees. So you will have to have higher slab rates, you'll target the corporates in other aspects, so that hurts the ease of doing business, boosting rates, and hurts the overall compliances and investment regime for the whole economy might get hurt. So based on these four arguments, I think we must have some level of agriculture taxation. But as we discussed, there is another side also, that why agriculture taxation is not being done. For example, this could be that the incomes of the farmer is erratic. It is not static, so it is say weather dependent, how the crop ultimately comes out, what is the price which is offered in the market. That is one aspect. Average monthly income of farmers itself is low, as we have understood in the survey which was provided by NABARD. Majorly we have small and farmers. Agriculture sector is already under stress. It might not be cost effective to tax agriculture. Consensus building issues for taxation, so it could become a political debate. Other aspect is with respect to cost effective, whether we have the sufficient land records to tax this. For example, if we say that we want to tax income of farmers who have land of 50 hectares or more, it might lead to land fragmentation. It might lead to issues where we do not have proper land records itself to tax the farmers. So I think this is a counter arguments which we have to give in very brief. But I think if your opinion is that you must tax agriculture, then you have to give way forward for these points. If your opinion is with respect to non-taxation of agriculture, then you have to give a way forward for the counter arguments which we have discussed earlier. As an individual, I thought the first four arguments are stronger compared to this, and there is possibility of finding the solutions for this. So I'll give you the way forward. In way forward, basically, I thought that there could be a higher level of taxation for agriculture. Say now that in old taxation, say up to 5 lakh, if it is exempt, if we consider rebate of 87A.
Commerce and Accountancy Optional in UPSC is one of the top scoring optional. As per the latest UPSC annual report, it is also providing more than 12% success rate, which is way higher than many other optionals. We are providing many free initiatives on Commerce Optional for the beginners. You can join our Telegram channel and you should follow our YouTube beginner series by the toppers and the teachers. You can also schedule one-to-one mentoring call with me to plan your strategy for the Commerce Optional. Our courses on the Commerce include classroom course, enriched study material, detailed solution of the previous year questions, and the daily answer writing mock test and practice. We are also adding the value through value additions.
We can say that if the income of agriculture is greater than 50 lakh, only then it will be taxed. There could be some limit that could have. One way is this. Second aspect is, if you're not taxing the income, you can give differential subsidies. So if there is a poor farmer, he gets more subsidies, and if there is a rich farmer whose income is more, he will not get subsidies. So this way we could reduce our subsidy burden, and reduction in expenditure is nothing but revenue for the government. So that way this could be an indirect tax, and it could help eliminate the vertical inequity. Okay, this could be the two approach, and this was actually suggested by M.S. Swaminathan. Way forward. Overall, I think you should wrap up your opinion by saying that there is a need for serious evaluation of the topic so that proper decision can be taken. So that would balance out the whole argument. So first we discussed why is there a need for taxation of agriculture. One, equity aspect. Second, it is used for evasion. Third, it is being misused by large and medium and large companies. Agriculture income is putting burden on other taxpayers. While no, there are some issues and challenges which can be tackled, and we have discussed two way forwards, basic way forwards on how we could tax and look forward. And you can wrap up your answer by saying that, sir, there is a need for serious contemplation on this topic by experts so that a proper decision can be taken. Yeah, I hope this topic was clear as well. My stand particularly here was to have some level of taxation because it is being misused, as we can see. Okay. Next topic that we can take up is startups. Startups specifically, I wanted to discuss some aspects of angel tax funding winter as well as the deduction which is available in 80 IAC. So the topic of startups, the basics topic of startups you must have read in economy notes of GS3, and there you must have dealt with what are the schemes of the government, what are the challenges which they are facing, what are the way forward, so that you can revise from that aspect. but the topics such as funding winter. You'll read in newspaper that startups today are facing the issue of crunch of funds. Until November 23, from Jan to November 23, the funding received by startups in India was $7 billion, and compared to year-on-year basis, this was a 66% fall compared to 2022. So funding winter is basically a concept where startups are facing crunch of liquid funds. They're not getting enough funds for their investment rounds. This could be attributed to multiple factors, I think. One could be we are seeing the interest rates are rising generally over the past 2 years to tackle inflation. So when interest rates rise, the cost of funds increase. So basically because of that, the investors are now more cautious in investing startups. They are also accounting some corporate governance issues, say in Byju's, etc. So because of multiple reasons, they are facing the issue of funding winter. Their funds are getting froze. This is the aspect of funding winter, and this is faced by startups throughout the world. Even the startups in US are facing this challenge. So this is not just for Indian startups. I think it is a global problem which they are facing. Second is with respect to 80 ISC. Under 80 ISC, Chapter 6A, the income of startups for 3 out of 10 years is exempt from taxation. This we have read in our DT preparation. The issue which the startups are facing is there are now 2 definitions of startups. One is which is given by DPIIT, the other which is for 80 IAC. So the one which is given by DPIIT is turnover less than 100 crores, age of entity is up to 10 years, scalable business is there, potential for employment, wealth generation, etc. So this is a definition which is given by DPIIT. According to that, we have around 84,000 startups. Okay. This is the 84,000 startups that approximately have. But there is another definition and mechanism to get benefit in 80 IAC, which is that there is a interministerial board. Interministerial board, IMB, which evaluates whether your startup is innovative or not. So by a group of bureaucrats, you are evaluated whether your startup is innovative or not. So because of these 2 issues, what we are seeing is that out of 84,000, only 1% startups are able to get benefit of 80 IAC. So despite having the provisions, because of an additional issue with respect to definitions or conflict, we are seeing that the startups are facing hurdle with respect to 80 IAC. So rather than just talking about general issues, if you'll talk about some specific issues of startups, I think it will give you an edge compared to other students. Third aspect of startups is the concept of angel tax. So the concept of angel tax is basically usually when the company is closely held or it is a private company, what investors were doing is they were investing in the startup at a rate which is more than their fair market value or the intrinsic value of the startup. So if the startup's intrinsic value of a share is 10 rupees, they are investing in the company at the rate of 20 or 50 or 100. So there is a gap which is created, and now with the introduction of angel tax in the last decade, we saw that the difference, for example, if the fair market value is 20 and you have invested it at 100, So the difference of 80 would be treated as the income of the startup itself. So you are getting funds at a intrinsic value greater than your startup. So this will be treated as your own income. So and the tax on this hence becomes the angel tax. This is called angel tax because usually the initial amount which is provided by the angel investors, which are the venture capitalists or venture capitalists, etc. And I think there were some changes which were brought in the concept of angel tax. Basically, the scope was enlarged for NRIs, and what there was a contemplation that this would reduce the level of investments. It would lead to tax questioning. Entrepreneurs might flip their startups from India to maybe Singapore or US because of this issue. But then DPIIT clarified that the concept of angel tax will not be applicable for recognized startups. So the recognized startups of 84,000 startups that we have, on those angel tax is not there. So those startups are basically doing good work and they are properly recognized by the government of India. For them, the reduction of compliances has been done. So no angel tax for that. Basically, the idea of bringing angel tax was to avoid money laundering as well as hawala kind of transactions in angel tax. So this is a benefit, and I think this is also an approach of government to find a middle path. So you have to, on one hand, you have to have ease of doing business. On the other hand, you have to check money laundering, tax evasion. So the government brought the angel tax. For ease of doing business, it skipped the 84,000 startups, but to check money laundering, it kept the provision for other private companies. So this way, it tried to go for a middle path approach overall in the concept of angel tax. So there could be a discussion on angel tax, what is angel tax, why it was brought, what is the effect of angel tax on investment climate of the economy. And then you can say that the government is taking steps to check this issue. It is becoming more vigilant with respect to the investments which is coming from non-NRIs and keeping in loop the foreign investments, etc. But it is also balancing out the ease of doing business with money laundering. So this could basically wrap up the whole issue in a proper manner. I hope you guys understood this aspect. Looking forward to a proper Y or a yes in the comments so that I can proceed on the next topic. Yes. So my point exactly was that angel tax as a concept, if you see, is aimed at checking tax evasion. Okay. But on the other hand, it is leading to issues of ease of doing business or increasing the compliances for the startups. You have to calculate fair market value, you'll have to justify it. Your fair market value might be less or more compared to which is given by the tax assessee. So this basically creates compliance burden. Now what the government has done is, so it has clarified, DPIIT has clarified that for the 84,000 startups that we have recognized, this angel tax won't be applicable because this angel tax would be for the other private limited companies. Am I clear on this? Yeah, so this is not basically a criteria to become a startup, but if you are a startup, then you don't have to face this burden. If you're other private limited company, you still have to face this burden. And for that, there are issues with respect to calculation of FMB. You have to justify it to the assessee, etc., which creates challenges, but we'll have to find a middle part for dealing with this issue. Okay. Next topic I think is an important theme again is insolvency and bankruptcy code. This is very much tested in multiple transcripts, and a basic format that you must have prepared during for economy, specifically in GS3, would be what are the objectives, what are the successes of IBC, what are the challenges, what are the way forwards. You must have a basic idea with respect to the objectives or successes or challenges. I'll talk of few specific aspects in this, because for interview you'll have to have some crisp idea on the whole topic. So for example, I think the objective specifically of IBC, if I had to put in 2-3 words, would be timeliness of the proceedings for bankruptcy, as well as value maximization. These are the two keywords I think are the objective of IBC particularly. There are other advantages over SURFACE, etc., which you can discuss. But for interview specifically, I think these 2-3 words are important, that you are aiming for timeliness and then value maximization. Another current affair with respect to IBC was in 2023, in December particularly, the finance minister asked the public sector banks to monitor all the cases, and especially the top 20 insolvency and bankruptcy court cases, as a part of management of their bad debts. So for dealing with the bad debts, the finance minister basically nudged all the public sector banks to focus on the top 20 cases while having a general idea. So these type of news you'll have, keep on reading in the newspapers, because IBC is important. If you get some tidbits from the newspapers, you can note them down in your notes. Coming on to the success of IBC, so you'll see the successes with respect to timeliness, value maximization, etc. But being students of commerce, I think you must have proper data to back your claim. For example, positive of IBC is with respect to recovery rates. The recovery rates are comparatively low based on the system. They are currently 32% on an average, but this is very much more than the pre-IBC era. Pre-IBC era, we had a recovery rate of 5 to 20%, and this is both these data are given by a CRISIL report in 2023. So the recovery rates are rising, we can see, but still there is a very low recovery rate. 32% recovery means 68% there is a haircut which is being faced. So one way to look at it is as a positive thing. Other is the challenge which we'll discuss later. Second is also with respect to a behavioral change which has been brought by IBC. Because of IBC, and there is a fear of losing your own company. As per different reports and similar reports, we have seen that more than 9 lakh crore of file debt has been settled before it has come to the IBC step itself. So rather than proceeding for IBC, and there are chances of losing your company because it has simplified the process for especially for corporate insolvency, I think there is a behavioral change also that we have seen, and it is leading to advantages which might not be captured by this data. But this does not mean that there are no challenges in this aspect. Challenges are particularly with respect to timelines. We are seeing the average resolution time between 300 to 600 days compared to the norm of 330 days or less. Haircuts, as we have discussed earlier, is also an issue. Then general IBC related issues is with respect to lack of insolvency bankruptcy professionals. Some practical issues I would like to discuss it with you is one is with respect to there is a significant delay in admission of cases at the pre-IBC level. So when you have to file your case, for example, say ABC company wants to go for bankruptcy, it is filing a case for bankruptcy. Now in this process takes a lot of time. But once a company files for bankruptcy, this news goes to the market. And if this process takes a lot of time, what happens is the assets of that company starts eroding their value. So if we could check this delay, we could check the erosion of value of the assets, and that would boost the overall recovery rate. So I think this is the practical challenge that the company and the professionals face. Other is with respect to lack of sharing of information by the founders of the company. They do not share the whole information. They ask employees to hide information. So such kind of practical difficulties are also there in the system. So even a good law which has good ambitions, it cannot be implemented if it is not supplemented by proper mechanisms, proper regulations to implement those laws. So the law itself is not bad, but the implementation aspect has some issues. Other issue is with respect to the judicial strength of the NCLT itself. So the NCLT has limited benches, so they are not able to admit cases, give judgments at a timely level. So that also increases this timeline because of judicial strength is not there. Other negatives, I think you'll know. I've tried to discuss more practical aspects here. Then you can give your way forward. All these aspects that I read were ones that I found in economics newspaper, their editorials, specific arguments. But for example, now that I have this content, tomorrow if another article comes on IBC, editorial analysis, I think you can skip it if you have a sufficient level of content. After that time, it becomes more sense to focus on new topics rather than just keep on adding new kinds of data fact, because ultimately you'll be able to say 2 or 3 points maximum for a topic in the interview setup particularly. So you just have to have 2-3 good points on a topic, and if you have those, you can skip reading the editorials if it does not convey a major topic or major area. So in newspaper I read this CD approach. C is with respect to capacity building. So capacity augmentation is required with respect to increasing the NCLT benches. D is with respect to digitalization. You can use digitalization by linking the IBC platforms for all the stakeholders to eliminate the data asymmetry. For example, IBBI, NCLT, all these platforms could be linked. Second is the expansion of pre-packaged resolution mechanism for large corporates. So pre-packaged resolution mechanism were brought by the government for IBC, where the owner itself approaches for bankruptcy and provides them a way out for a turnaround of the company. So that could be expanded. So C, D, E. Another way forward in general, for example, addressing these practical issues of regulations. So this could be because of the judicial strength, we are focused on increasing the capacity of both. So I think in this way we can make the IBC overall more effective. So if the question is, what do you think about the IBC law? You can say that the objective of the law is to ensure timeliness as well as value maximization for dealing with bankruptcy provisions. It has been successful in multiple cases. You can give examples of corporates which have turned around, or you can say that the recovery rate is around 30-32% compared to the previous era, which was 5 to 20%. This is one gain. Other is the behavioral change again, that the IBC has brought. However, sir, there are some challenges which we are facing is with respect to increased deadlines, large number of haircuts which the uh, banks are facing or the lenders are facing, as well as some practical issues with respect to non-sharing of information or judicial strength is low, which can be tackled through the approach of capacity building, digitalization, or expansion of prepackaged insolvency. So this wrap ups your whole opinion. Wrap ups your whole opinion on the IBC law. You could get such general questions also for the other topics. For example, what is your opinion on the GST law? So this is a very generic question. Maybe you could talk for 15 minutes on this topic, but you have to wrap up your answer in a holistic manner. So if you think of GST also, you'll say GST is intended as a change in the income tax system, overall structural change. The successes include this. However, sir, we are facing some limitations. But on a positive note, sir, I think the government is taking pragmatic steps to deal with the issue. And such steps have been taken. They are continually being taken, and more steps could be taken in the direction. So this wraps up your whole topic on forming an opinion on such kind of cases. I hope this area was clear. So IBC is an important theme. Other topic that I want to take up is a generic topic basically is with respect to integration of commerce in your answers. So as we have we read in detail about economics or etc. So you could try to use your command over the subject in your answers. For example, if there is a situation based question, for example, if you are posted in XYZ district, what are the steps that you will take up? So rather than discussing maybe I'll focus on the issue of health, I'll focus on the issue of say, education. These are equally important topics, but these might deviate your interview on some other grounds. You could link your commerce knowledge to the answer. For example, sir, I will focus on reducing the compliance burden by ensuring ease of doing business in such and such ways in my district. I will interact with different business bodies and corporates in that area to ensure that there is a proper investment and employment which can be generated in my district. So this will keep the discussion on the economic topics, etc., and can give you an edge in terms of controlling the flow of an interview. And you are also comfortable in answering these questions. What changes you want to bring to a district, or if there is some, for example, if you are made a leader in say XYZ past movement, etc. What changes would you like to make in the history? So you could end up discussing, sir, I have expertise in commerce and economics. I think for this movement in past history, I could have contributed more in terms of talking to businesses and interacting. So this way you could use your commerce knowledge and integrate that with your answers, especially in situational based questions. So there could be some situational based questions dealing, for example, that we discussed with respect to the district, or there could be some open-ended questions where you could try to bring your knowledge of taxation, audit, etc., or whatever your work experience is. For example, what reforms do you think you will bring as an administrator by being a commerce student? So in that way, you might use your work experience. So for example, I've done audits, I've done internal audits. Internal audits include financial controls. Maybe, sir, the mechanism of financial control, checks and balances, etc. through scoping, testing, that could be incorporated in my district or my system at a basic level based on the circumstances. I think this is one point that you can keep in mind. Yeah. We'll take one or two more topics and then we'll take the questions. I think another topics which might be asked is with respect to what are the taxation tips that you want to give, or what are the investment advice if you have had some linkages with respect to financial markets, because when they see you as a commerce student, they also see you as an expert in stock market, etc., which is the belief which may not be true, but on that note, you might have to give some investment advices. Again, when you read newspapers, there also you get investment tips. The editorial sometimes cover aspects of investment tips or taxation tips. So you could keep a track. You could use your commerce knowledge again there. For example, with respect to say senior citizens, there is a concept of reverse mortgage. So if you do not have regular income, you could use your property and lend it to the bank, and bank would keep that property, and in exchange of that property, it will provide you annuity amounts for a long time until you are alive. So a illiquid asset got converted into a liquid asset, will get a stream of money, and that stream of money is not taxed. So this could be one mechanism of generating an additional source of income if you have an asset. Second is with respect to taxation of interest. So the senior citizen have additional amount compared to 10,000, you have 50,000 benefit. You can talk about that, or some practical aspects. For example, we see that shares, etc. They are the long-term gain that you get is exempt up to 1 lakh. Now, for example, you have bought some shares and that has been for more than a year, which is the case for short-term and long-term. And post that 1 year, now you have generated a return. So you invested, suppose 3 lakhs. Now the share has become 5 lakh. The period is more than 1 year, so it's a long-term capital gain that you have generated. Up to 1 lakh would be exempt. I'm sorry. And then you have generated 2 lakh rupees. So before March, what you could do is you could sell your shares at 5 lakhs. This generated 2 lakh income, or you could sell your shares up to a tune of 1 lakh. This 1 lakh would be exempt in this year. Next year, on April 1, you can again buy those shares with the money that you have brought and basically harvest the 1 lakh advantage that the government provides. So this is generally ignored by payers. Other aspect is with respect to advance taxation. People often ignore this advance taxation and end up paying large fees, interest for this. So you could be careful on that. Other is the 26AS statement. This is a new annual information statement which is provided by the Income Tax Department. And this information statement itself has a lot of information about your financial transactions. So banks are reporting your financial transactions to the authorities through relevant mechanisms, and based on this AIS is generated. And if you could see your transaction in AIS, and if you think it is a taxable income, then you must show it on your income tax return. Otherwise, under scrutiny or through evaluation by the computerized mechanism, you will ultimately get a show cause notice or an assessment order ultimately. So these are some taxation tips you can give practically. Other is with respect to investments. I think investments, you could focus on say capex supported stocks. The government and the private sector is gradually focusing on increasing their capex. So you could focus on say sectors like steel, cement, real estate, or you could focus on thematic sector funds. For example, infrastructure, capital goods, there are thematic funds in the equity markets. You could suggest you should invest in those rather than specifically saying go invest in this company. You could give a general idea. Other aspect is there is an expectation of rate cut by the RBI in the coming year. So given that, we could see that there are chances that the FD returns would peak at a certain level. So when the RBI starts cutting rates, the interest rates will start to fall. And there is a certain FD level, FD return that you can get today. So today, if you want to tap this FD interest, you can book a long-term FD now. And this investment return would get logged. So if you take a FD for 5 years, you will avoid this interest rate falling trap. So you could lock your FDs if you want to if the interest rate starts falling, it ultimately means more funds for stock markets. So stock markets, there are chances it might get more volatile in the coming period. So you can focus on blue chip stocks. Similarly, the fall in interest rate is inversely proportional for um, price of debt securities. So if there is a fall in interest rate, there are chances the price of the debt securities will increase. So you could invest in debt mutual funds to tap this gain in prices. Also, to diversify, you can invest in gold and silver for the inflation hedge. So all these aspects you can incorporate it while talking, and it would depend on the question which is ultimately posed by the board. Overall, general investment advice you can also give is with respect to avoid investing at lump sum at the peaks. For example, the Sensex is touching 72,000. We are seeing it is reaching a level of peak. You should not invest at this peak because there are chances there will be a course correction. Also, people often they have invested at a high. Whenever there is a fall, they try to sell the share in between, but there are chances the market might create a new high. So you must be little diligent and patient while investing at high low. So you must stay invested if the security is fundamentally good. So this is one aspect is with respect to taxation tips, investment advice that you might be tested upon to see your practical knowledge. Another topic that we can discuss is, I think, with respect to CBDC and UPI. I was also tested on cryptocurrency particularly. One member tested me on the question on cryptocurrency throughout his questions. CBDC has been brought by RBI. It was under a pilot project with respect to wholesale transactions between interbank or large amount transactions, and also it has been brought at the retail level. Recently, RBI brought it for specific banks. So there was an advertisement which was provided by RBI. So based on that, I downloaded the app and tried to figure out what exactly happened in that app. So if there is some practical question which is asked to me on CBDC, I could handle that. Other aspect is, I think you must be aware of the basic advantages of CBDC or UPI, etc. So what is CBDC? It is a legal token, legal tender, which is provided by the RBI, and it is a digital form of a currency. But one practical question which could be asked by board is, why CBDC when we already have UPI? CBDC is basically a digital wallet. Like you have your money in your wallet in your pockets, you have a digital wallet which will store your currency. And to load this currency, you'll have to feed money from the bank account. Or the money from some other person or transaction. So just like your physical wallet, which does not earn interest, if your money is in a wallet compared to a bank account, similarly digital wallet will also not earn you interest. So the disadvantage of CBDC is no interest on the money compared to UPI. UPI, the money stays in the bank itself. Here you are earning the interest. Second is basically why this question is asked. Second aspect is with respect to the muscle memory. Using UPI has become very easy, and we are seeing large number of transactions for UPI from small shopkeepers to transaction with respect to your tickets and everything could be done through a scanning QR code. And people are now getting comfortable with respect to UPI. So there will be a resistance for people to shift from UPI to CBDC. So yes, on these notes, UPI is relevant compared to CBD, but we cannot say that CBDC is totally flawed. CBDC itself has multiple uses, which is the advantages that it offers with respect to printing currency, the cost with respect to printing of currencies, the transactions, the tracking of transactions, or etc. But I think the two major advantages that CBDC offers is one is with respect to e-rupee. Now the CBDC could be programmed in a manner to be used for specific purpose. For example, you give 2000 rupees to farmer for fertilizer. Now this could be used only at government fertilizer centers. We'll program this 2000 rupees in such a manner it will not be used at any other personal uses, etc. So in that way, you could check leakages of basic income. UPI basically it could be programmed. So this advantage is given by CBDC. Other is CBDC has greater role at the wholesale level. So the wholesale level bank A has to settle funds to bank B. They could use the CBDC and save time, energy, etc. Also the transaction cost of settling that big transaction. We can just wrap it up after this. Okay. Yeah. हाँ सर मेजरली हो गए हैं तो I think these are the two advantages with the CBDC offers compared to UPI. So आप ऐसे नहीं कह सकते कि CBDC completely flawed है. हाँ कुछ अपन ने रीजन ऊपर देखे उसपे इंटरेस्ट नहीं मिलता या फिर अभी इजी हो गया यूपीआई को यूज करना बिकॉज ऑफ द मसल मेमोरी. बट यस सीबीडीसी ऑल्सो हैज इट्स ओन एडवांटेजेस. तो इस तरीके से आपका अगर कंटेंट बना हुआ है तो आपका ओपिनियन भी इजीली बन जाएगा कि सीबीडीसी बेटर है यूपीआई बेटर है. ऐसा कोई वन शॉट आंसर नहीं है. कुछ केसेस में अभी यूपीआई बेटर लग रहा है बट ग्रेजुअली सीबीडीसी का यूसेज बढ़ेगा. अभी आई थिंक लास्ट आरबीआई की भी रिपोर्ट आई थी कि दिसंबर 27 तक जब लॉन्च हुआ था तो 1 मिलियन ट्रांजैक्शंस पर डे अचीव कर लिया था और ग्रेजुअली वो 2 मिलियन ट्रांजैक्शन पर डे आ गया. तो ग्रेजुअली अडॉप्ट हो रहा है सीबीडीसी एंड फिर वही ऑप्टिमिस्टिक अप्रोच रखना सर. दोनों ही कॉम्प्लीमेंट करेंगी और डिजिटलाइजेशन फाइनेंशियल इंक्लूजन इस सबको प्रमोट करेंगे. आई होप ये डिस्कशन रेलेवेंट लगा होगा आप लोगों को. एक बार और क्वेश्चंस में देख लेगा हूँ इसमें और आपके कोई क्वेश्चन होगा आप प्लीज पोस्ट कर दीजिए. Gauri ji has asked a question. How do you approach the increasing number of incidences wherein NAFRA is imposing penalties on CA and CF firm? सर इस पर आप कुछ बोलना नहीं है. Hello, question. So NAFRA अपनी आई थी 2018 और primarily because of the frauds that were happening, starting with Satyam, फिर ILNFS, DHFL जो frauds हुए थे उसमें there were allegations कि auditors का रोल proper उन्होंने play नहीं किया था. And ICI is not able to impose the disciplinary action on those auditors. ICI के पास powers थे कि वो सिर्फ audit firms पे कर सकता है. NAFRA के पास power है कि वो individual auditor को भी punish कर सकता है. तो एक तो जो regulatory change हुआ है अभी उसकी वजह से ये incidences आ रहे हैं और मेरे को लगता है कि incidences को positive light में देखना चाहिए. क्यों? क्योंकि अगर ये सब चीजें चेक हो रही है मतलब अपने रेगुलेटरी वगैरह में अच्छे से वर्क कर रहे हैं और जब ये जो ऑडिटर्स बेसिकली ब्लैक शीप्स हैं इनको अपन रूट आउट करेंगे तो ऑडिट क्वालिटी बढ़ेगी. ऑडिट क्वालिटी इंप्रूव होगी तो ट्रस्ट बढ़ेगा फाइनेंशियल्स में. ट्रस्ट बढ़ेगा तो इन्वेस्टमेंट बढ़ेंगे. तो ये तो आई थिंक ओवरऑल एक अच्छी चीज है जो हो रही है अभी. और ये हो क्यों रही है? क्योंकि नफरा एक्टिव रोल प्ले कर रही है, टेक्नोलॉजी आ गई है, नफरा के पास भी प्रॉपर पावर है, सिस्टम्स हैं जिसके थ्रू वो चेक कर रही है। नफरा ने अभी बिग फोर्स वगैरह को भी बोला था कि उनके जो प्रॉपर टेक्नोलॉजी वो लोग यूज कर रहे हैं फॉर डॉक्यूमेंटेशन एक्सेट्रा, उस पर उसने क्वेश्चन किया था। तो ये तो आई थिंक इन द लॉन्ग टर्म इंटरेस्ट ऑफ द इकोनॉमी अच्छा है, और अपने को डेवलप्ड इकोनॉमी बनना है 2047 तक, तो अच्छा है कि इस तरीके के आएंगे, अपन इसको एलिमिनेट कर सकते हैं। और फिर वही आप रैप अप करिए कि सर इसका ये मतलब नहीं है कि सारे ही ऑडिटर्स खराब हैं, ये तो निकल रहे हैं बहुत सारे अच्छे ऑडिटर्स हैं जिसकी वजह से आज फाइनेंशियल्स में फेथ है, इंडिया में इन्वेस्टमेंट्स बढ़ रहे हैं और फाइनेंशियल्स में ट्रस्ट आता है। तो आपको उस तरीके से इसको रखना चाहिए मेरे हिसाब से। ये एंड ब्लैक मनी अगेन आई थिंक ये वही है इशू। सीए वगैरह को इस तरीके से देखा जाता है कि वो ब्लैक मनी को व्हाइट मनी में कन्वर्ट करते हैं वो, बट इसको क्या अपन जनरलाइज कर सकते हैं कि सारे सीए ऐसे करते हैं? और अगर करते हैं तो वही अपने टू अप्रोचेस, सर अगर वो इस तरीके का काम करते हैं तो उनको पेनलाइज करना चाहिए। अगर जनरल और ओपिनियन ऐसा अपन फ्रेम नहीं कर सकते कि सीए ब्लैक मनी को वो करते हैं। सेकेंड इज सीए एंड ब्लैक मनी में अनदर एस्पेक्ट इज विद रिस्पेक्ट टू द एथिकल कोड। अपना सीए फाइनल में भी बहुत डिटेल में वी रीड अबाउट एथिक्स, इस तरीके से अपने को सीए इन सर्विस के क्या रूल्स हैं, सीए इन प्रैक्टिस के क्या रूल्स हैं। तो बहुत सारे कोड गाइडलाइंस दे रखे हैं जो इम्प्लीमेंट होते हैं, और उन्हीं गाइडलाइंस को बेस रख के सीए प्रोफेशन की एक ऑथेंटिसिटी बनती है। तो आपको क्लियर अपना स्टैंड रखना चाहिए मेरे हिसाब से कि ब्लैक मनी में सर मैं तो इंडेक्स नहीं करता हूँ एज ए सीए, और जो करते हैं सर वो गलत करते हैं, ये क्लियर है और उनको पनिशमेंट मिलना चाहिए। ये है विद रिस्पेक्ट टू टैक्सेशन, हाउ टू इंक्रीज द टैक्स बेस एज इवन व्हेन फाइलिंग्स आर इंक्रीजिंग एक्चुअल टैक्स पेबल पॉपुलेशन इज लो। अब इसमें आप बेसिक टैक्सेशन के लिए आप एक एस्पेक्ट आप रख सकते हो इनकम टैक्स के लिए, एक एस्पेक्ट आप रख सकते हो इनडायरेक्ट टैक्स जीएसटी एंड कस्टम्स के लिए, एक एस्पेक्ट आप रख सकते हो टैक्स बेस का लोकल म्यूनिसिपैलिटी टैक्सेस के लिए। तो तीन हेडर्स में आपने पॉइंट डिवाइड करे, दो दो पॉइंट बोले, तो उसी से काफी अच्छा हो जाएगा। फर्स्ट इज जो लगता है कि टैक्स बेस बढ़ाने के लिए एक तो कंप्लायंस बर्डन कम होना चाहिए। अगर आप सिंपल एक एग्जांपल लो एलटीसीजी का, तो एलटीसीजी की अपन डेफिनेशन ही पढ़ते हैं कि 1 साल का रूल है, 2 साल का रूल है, 3 साल का रूल है। तो इतना कॉम्प्लिकेटेड है कि लोग बोलते हैं इससे बेटर है हम टैक्स ही फाइल नहीं करते हैं, उनको समझता ही नहीं है, या फिर उनका रिलायंस बढ़ जाता है, सीए के पास जाना पड़ता है, फीस देना पड़ता है। तो ये थोड़ा कंप्लायंस बर्डन कम होगा तो उन पे इम्पैक्ट कम आएगा, वन। सेकेंड इज इकोनॉमिक सर्वे ने बोला था कि आप बिहेवियरल नजेस दो फॉर बूस्टिंग टैक्स। तो आप जो हाईएस्ट टैक्स पेयर हैं उनके नाम पे कोई रोड रखो, एसेट रखो, या उनको वीआईपी डिप्लोमेटिक सर्विसेज दो। तो बेसिकली उनका कॉन्सेप्ट था व्हाट गेट्स ऑनर्ड गेट्स नर्चर्ड। अगर इकोनॉमी में आप ऑनेस्ट टैक्स पेयर्स को ऑनर करोगे तो वो एट्रीब्यूट आएगा, तो उससे टैक्स बेस बढ़ेगा। फिर जीएसटी में आप बात कर सकते हो सिमिलरली कि डेटा जो है इनकम टैक्स का और जीएसटी का, वो बेसिकली उसमें गैप्स हैं। फॉर एग्जाम्पल 14 मिलियन आई थिंक अप्रोक्सीमेट जीएसटी एसएससीज हैं वर्सेज 80 मिलियन इनकम टैक्स एसएससी हैं। तो ये लोग इनकम टैक्स भर रहे हैं बट जीएसटी नहीं भर रहे हैं। तो इसमें क्या गैप्स हैं, क्यों ये गैप्स हैं? या तो इन पे जीएसटी लायबिलिटी नहीं है, या फिर ये एवेड कर रहे हैं जीएसटी की लायबिलिटी, इनका टर्नओवर छोटा है, इनकम टैक्स भी भर रहे हैं, ये तो वैसे ही कम है 8 करोड़, ये ऑलरेडी कम है, बट इन दोनों में भी क्यों गैप्स हैं? इसको आप टेक्नोलॉजी डेटा को आप इंटीग्रेट करके पता लगा सकते हो। और अराउंड आई थिंक आप इस फिगर को एक बार चेक कर सकते हैं, 1,40,000 आईटी रिटर्न भर रहे हैं जो 1 करोड़ से ऊपर है। तो क्या इंडिया में सिर्फ 1,40,000 लोग ही हैं जो 1 करोड़ की इनकम से ज्यादा अर्न कर रहे हैं? मतलब यहाँ पे बहुत सारे गैप्स हैं जो अपन प्लग इन नहीं कर पा रहे हैं, इनको अपने को टारगेट करना चाहिए। थर्ड, फिर आप म्यूनिसिपैलिटी रेवेन्यू के लिए बात कर सकते हो कि उनका प्रॉपर्टी टैक्स कलेक्शन और वो सब, तो एक ब्रॉड बेस्ड आपका आई थिंक आंसर हो जाएगा। तो थोड़ा होलिस्टिक भी लगेगा। एज ए म्यूनिसिपल कमिश्नर आई थिंक टैक्सेशन ऑफ डिस्ट्रिक्ट या फिर वही अपना पॉलिटी का आपको बेसिक ओवरव्यू लेना पड़ेगा। तो टैक्सेशन में क्या क्या आता है, वाटर टैक्सेस आ गए, हाउस टैक्सेस आ गए, प्रॉपर्टी टैक्सेस आ गए। तो आप 15 फाइनेंस कमीशन का रिकमेंडेशन देखेंगे तो प्रॉपर्टी टैक्सेस कलेक्ट नहीं हो रहे हैं प्रॉपर्ली, क्योंकि उनके पास कैपेसिटी नहीं है उसको कलेक्ट करने की। सेकेंड इज की जो प्रॉपर्टी के सर्कल रेट्स होते हैं उसको वो अपडेट ही नहीं करते, तो पुराने लोअर लेवल ऑफ प्रॉपर्टी सर्कल रेट्स पे टैक्सेस कलेक्ट हो रहे हैं, उसको आप अपडेट करिए। म्यूनिसिपल कमीशन जो है उनका ऑडिट मैकेनिज्म में आप ला सकते हैं, तो उनके ऑडिट्स प्रॉपर हो, प्रॉपर उनकी फाइनेंसिंग हो, उससे आप टैक्स बेस इंक्रीज कर सकते हैं। ये 2-3 पॉइंट्स आई थिंक मेरे को अभी दिमाग में आ रहे हैं कि टैक्सेशन कैसे कर सकते हैं। और ये जो क्लीनलीनेस टैक्स वगैरह है, ये सब अगर म्यूनिसपैलिटी की कैपेसिटी आएगी, वो इम्प्लीमेंट करेगी चीजें, तो लोग इंटरेस्टेड होते हैं और देते हैं। फॉर एग्जाम्पल आप इंदौर का मॉडल देखेंगे, तो इंदौर के मॉडल में गार्बेज टैक्स लगाया जाता है हाउसेस पे, डिपेंडिंग ऑन द साइज ऑफ द हाउस, 90 रुपीज, 150 रुपीज ऐसे। बट वहाँ पे लोग इतने एंथुजियास्टिक हैं उसके लिए कि वहाँ पे गार्बेज टैक्स का रिकवरी रेट इज अराउंड 86%। So people are upfront coming and paying taxes when they see that ultimately they are getting the services, ultimately the city is becoming the cleanest। थोड़ा सा ओनस म्यूनिसपैलिटी पे भी है, थोड़ा सा लोगों पे भी है, और इस तरीके से आप देख सकते हैं। आई होप ये क्वेश्चन एड्रेस हो गए। थैंक यू सो मच, आपने इतना टाइम दिया। आई होप कुछ वैल्यू ऐड हुआ होगा। आई पास इट ऑन टू सर नाउ।
Thank you very much, Madhav. Detailed discussion over the topics. I was also listening to some of the topics, and basically, like one thing a few things I would like to add is work on the basics, है ना? जैसे आप इकोनॉमी के अंदर भी there are some topic like balance of payment. So work on the detailed content of balance of payment. Balance of payment में current account में क्या आता है, capital account में क्या आता है. What happens कि GST when we are preparing, we prepare in a very general manner. हम सोचते हैं कि ठीक है MCQ आएगा तो सोल्व कर ही देंगे, हमें पता है कैपिटल करंट क्या क्या है। बट व्हेन एग्जैक्टली दे आस्क यू ओके प्राइवेट रेमिटेंसेस कहाँ पे आता है, इज इट पार्ट ऑफ द नेशनल इनकम और नॉट, और दे आस्क यू ओके इज इट पार्ट ऑफ द करंट अकाउंट, यस करंट अकाउंट है लेकिन कहाँ पे आता है, किस नाम से उसको हम इंक्लूड करते हैं। तो इकोनॉमी की जो आपके बेसिक फंडा है, बैलेंस ऑफ पेमेंट हो गया, देन रेवेन्यू एंड कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर, रेवेन्यू एंड कैपिटल रिसीट, जैसे आपको क्वेश्चन आया था कि सर टैक्स बेस कैसे इंक्रीज करें, तो यहाँ पर भी आपको फंडामेंटल्स पे काम करना होगा। ठीक है, जैसे कि टैक्स इलास्टिसिटी, टैक्स बायोएंसी, इस तरह के वर्ड्स आप देखिए कि हमें टैक्स बेस बढ़ाने के लिए हमें क्या करना होगा, हमें वैल्यू ऑफ द जीडीपी बढ़ाना होगा और हमें नंबर ऑफ पीपल पेइंग द टैक्सेस हमें इंक्रीज करना होगा। थोड़ा सा आप जो इकोनॉमी के बेसिक्स है आप उसको साथ में लेके चलिए। हाँ यस, क्या क्या कंपोनेंट होते हैं हम लोग सोच नहीं पाते। यस, हाँ मेरे से भी आते हैं, बिल्कुल सिंपल से कोई। हाँ यस, तो फॉरेन एक्सचेंज रिजर्व में जैसे आपका मतलब हम भूल जाते हैं कि इसमें IMF का कोटा भी आता है ना, तो रिजर्व ट्रांच इसमें एक वर्ड होता है। तो ये सब प्रीलिम्स में पढ़ते हैं, लेकिन मेंस में जाके हम सोचते हैं कि हमें आता ही है, क्या ही पूछेंगे वो, बट वो बहुत ही बेसिक लेवल की नॉलेज आप चेक करते हैं। तो इकोनॉमी को अगर आपके पास समय है, आपका इंटरव्यू में तो रोक के है, इकोनॉमी के बेसिक कॉन्सेप्ट अच्छे से करके जाइए। नेशनल इनकम के 3 मेथड्स होते हैं, तो क्या डिफरेंस होता है, NFI में क्या इंक्लूड होता है, रिसेंटली क्या ट्रेंड है प्राइवेट रेमिटेंसेस का, NFI का क्या ट्रेंड है, GNP वर्सेस GDP। तो अगर वो जिस भी तरफ चले गए तो आपके मान के चलो कि उस तरफ आपको अच्छे से चेक कर लेंगे वो लोग। तो इकोनॉमी को अच्छे से करके जाना है और आपको बिहेवियरल एंगल पे फोकस करना है। मैं रिपीट वापस सेम चीज कर रहा हूँ, बेसिक्स पे काम करना है, बिहेवियरल एंगल पे काम करना है। फैक्चुअली आप कोई चीज मिस कर सकते हो बट कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, कॉमन सेंस को यूज कीजिए, चीजें जो है ना वही रहती है, कॉमन सेंस को अपने को यूज कीजिएगा और अपनी तरफ से आप ट्राई कीजिए कि सर आई थिंक इट दिस शुड बी डन। तो आप अपने पर डाउट मत कीजिए किसी भी टॉपिक के ऊपर,
बिना डाउट किए अपने आंसर को कॉन्फिडेंस से दीजिए, वो ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है। और कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव आंसर दीजिए, ट्राई टू इंक्लूड वेरियस पर्सपेक्टिव्स ऑफ वेरियस स्टेक होल्डर्स, वेरियस लेवल्स ऑफ गवर्नमेंट, एंड ऑलवेज थिंक फ्रॉम द पर्सपेक्टिव ऑफ द गवर्नमेंट। गवर्नमेंट के पर्सपेक्टिव से सोच के आपको आंसर देना है। इट्स नॉट ए कॉर्पोरेट इंटरव्यू। तो यहाँ पे फैक्चुअली अगर आप किसी टॉपिक में गलत है, कुछ मिस कर रहे हैं, तो कोई मैटर नहीं करेगा। आपको बस ये फील कराना है कि सर मैं तैयार हूं और आप मुझे जो है अगर ट्रेनिंग दे दोगे तो मैं संभाल लूंगा चीजें, ठीक है। तो आपको एक एंगल, जो ह्यूमन एंगल की मैं बात कर रहा हूँ बार बार, मैं क्यों बात कर रहा हूँ, क्योंकि वो बहुत ज्यादा आईक्यू वाले लोग में इंटरेस्टेड नहीं है कि जो बहुत ज्यादा स्मार्ट हो, इंटेलिजेंट हो। उनको चाहिए कि ऐसा बंदा जो रियलिटी को जानता हो, जिसका इमोशनल क्वोशंट अच्छा हो, जिसका सोशल क्वोशंट अच्छा हो, जो लोगों को साथ में लेके चल सके। अगर वो जिसको जहां बिठा दो तो वो उस पोजीशन को संभाल सके, नॉट ओनली फ्रॉम द पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू ऑफ द एफिशिएंसी बट ऑल्सो फ्रॉम द पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू ऑफ द पीपल, कि हाँ उन लोगों को साथ में लेके चल रहा है, सब लोग खुश है। वहां पर उसकी पोस्टिंग कर देंगे तो वहां के पॉलिटिशियंस भी खुश है, वहां के लोग भी खुश है, वहां के ऑफिसर्स भी खुश है। तो इसलिए आपको एक अच्छा मैनेजर बनना है और आपको एक अच्छा ह्यूमन मैनेजर बनना है। आपको यू कैन मैनेज द पीपल। एट द एंड ऑफ द डे 5 साल के बाद में आपका काम सिर्फ यही रह जाएगा। आप किसी को भी उठा के देख लो, कोई भी मिनिस्टर क्या काम करता है, यही काम करता है, उसे कुछ नहीं पता होता डिपार्टमेंट के बारे में, लेकिन वो मिनिस्टर क्यों बन जाता है? क्योंकि उसको ह्यूमन को मैनेज करना आता है। और इसी तरह से जो ब्यूरोक्रेट होता है, वो जूनियर लेवल पे सब लोग सेम काम कर रहे होते हैं, लेकिन मिडिल लेवल पे और सीनियर लेवल पे जो लोग पहुंच पाते हैं वो इसलिए पहुंच पाते हैं क्योंकि उनकी पीपल स्किल्स बेटर होती है। दे नो हाउ टू मैनेज द पीपल। चाहे नॉलेज कम होगी तब भी कोई दिक्कत नहीं है, आपके जूनियर्स आपको नॉलेज प्रोवाइड कर देंगे, आपके सीनियर्स आपको नॉलेज प्रोवाइड कर देंगे। लेकिन अगर आप लोगों को साथ में लेके चल सकते हो तो आप बेस्ट एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर हो, ठीक है। तो बहुत ही सॉफ्ट आपको अपना एक एटीट्यूड रखना है। और सॉफ्ट का मतलब है कि हम्बल लेकिन फर्म, है ना। इट शुड नॉट बी कि आप कई बार मैं देखता हूँ कि मॉक इंटरव्यू में मैं स्टूडेंट को एक पॉइंट पकड़ लेता हूँ और मैं उसको वापस से चेक करता हूँ कि फॉर्म है कि नहीं है, वो स्टूडेंट चेंज कर देता है। तो वहां से मुझे पता चलता है कि अच्छा ये कोशिश तो कर रहा था कि हम्बल दिखाने की, लेकिन उस चक्कर में ये फर्म नहीं रह पाया, है ना। तो हम्बल रहना है लेकिन फर्म रहना। एट द सेम टाइम यू डोंट हैव टू रिजेक्ट द व्यूज ऑफ अदर्स, ठीक है। तो आप लोग जो भी है अभी, जिनके भी इंटरव्यूज अभी नहीं हुए, तो आप लोग जो है अभी बाकी जो भी समय है उसको अच्छे से यूज कीजिए और मॉक्स वगैरह दीजिए पास से। कॉमर्स का मॉक जो है आप लोग ऑलरेडी मेरे से मिल चुके हो सब लोग, है ना। तो जाने से पहले मॉक जरूर देके जाइए। और मॉक देने का बहुत एडवांटेज होता है, एक आपको फिनिशिंग टच मिलता है, ठीक है। बाकी तो अगर कोई भी फर्दर आपको सपोर्ट चाहिए मेरे से या माधव से, तो आप कॉन्टेक्ट करें मुझे, मेरी टीम को बताएं, तो आपको पूरी हेल्प करेंगे। थैंक यू वेरी मच। तो आपको बहुत पेशेंस रहा, लास्ट 2 आवर्स हो गए। यूपीएससी प्रिपरेशन सबसे बोरिंग काम है। बनने के बाद में सबको, सिलेक्शन के बाद में सबको दिखाई देता है यार देखो क्या बन गया, हाँ। लेकिन जितना बोरिंग काम है कि हम इतने 2 घंटे से एक साइलेंट होकर के आराम से ऐसे मुद्दों पर बात कर रहे हैं जिसके बारे में कोई स्ट्रक्चर नॉलेज नहीं है, लोग अपनी ओपिनियन बिल्ड करने में सर्च करते रहते हैं, तो कोई एंड भी नहीं है इस रिसर्च का, कोई एंड भी नहीं है। इसलिए मैं कहता हूँ ट्रस्ट करो कि आपकी जो नॉलेज है वो एडिक्वेट, यहां से स्टार्ट करो। जो भी टॉपिक से, ऐसा नहीं है कि मेंस का टॉपिक अलग थे और मेंस के बाद टॉपिक बदल गए, टॉपिक नहीं बदले, टॉपिक नहीं तो नहीं है, फैक्ट्स भी ऑलमोस्ट नहीं है, सिर्फ 1-2 महीने में ऊपर नीचे कुछ चीजें हुई है, कुछ आपको बिहेवियरल एंगल ऐड करके अपने आंसर को देना है, ठीक है। थैंक यू वेरी मच वंस अगेन माधव। विश यू ऑल द बेस्ट एवरीवन, आपके बेस्ट रिजल्ट के लिए। और ये जो साइलेंट एफर्ट है, हमारा स्लो एफर्ट है, आई एम कॉन्फिडेंट कि इट विल डेफिनेटली कन्वर्ट इनटू द गुड रिजल्ट। थैंक यू एवरीवन, ऑल द बेस्ट।
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Commerce and Accountancy Optional in UPSC is one of the top scoring optional. As per the latest UPSC annual report, it is also providing more than 12% success rate, which is way higher than many other optionals. We are providing many free initiatives on Commerce Optional for the beginners. You can join our Telegram channel and you should follow our YouTube beginner series by the toppers and the teachers. You can also schedule one-to-one mentoring call with me to plan your strategy for the commerce optional. Our courses on the commerce include classroom course, enriched study material, detailed solution of the previous year questions, and the daily answer writing mock test and practice. We are also adding the value through value additions.